If you train faster than you race, and I don't mean a little, I mean noticeably, you've probably been told the same things everyone gets told. It's nerves, it's mental toughness, you need to want it more. But I don't buy that anymore. And I've got a swimmer to prove it. Me. I have zero pre-race nervousness, and I still go slower on race day than I do in training every single time. So if it's not nerves, then what is it? I think I've actually found the answer, and it's going to change how I train for the next 4 months. I train under an Olympian coach and alongside Max Morgan, who is a European junior champion and world junior medalist. I'm saying that because it kills the obvious excuse. This isn't a bad club, a bad coach, or a bad teammate problem. Here's the issue. During our weekly 200 pace sets, usually 3 rounds of 450s, descending from 70 seconds down to 60, I regularly hold 34s on breaststroke, sometimes low 34s, and that's a repeatable, real training number, not a one-off fluke rep. But then, my actual 200 breast PB from English Winters last December has these splits: 31.4, 35.8, 36.5, 37.7. Now look at that shape. It's not that I go out too fast and die, it's worse than that. It gets progressively slower every single 50 all the way to the wall. And in our rare long course sessions, doing similar 200 pace sets, I've held 34s and 35s there too. But then my long course PB still ends in a 38 for the last 50 metres. So the pattern holds across both short course and long course pools, and it's not close to random. Something happens between practice and racing that's costing me roughly 3 seconds each 50 metre split, and it happens in exactly the same shape every time. A decent 50, then a worse one, then worse again at the end. Now if this problem was a mental nervousness thing, you'd expect it to show up as an overly fast start or an even faster collapse, going out on adrenaline, then paying for it soon after. That's the classic nervous pattern anyway, but that's not what my splits show. My first 50 is very close to what I'm aiming for, but then it's the second, third and fourth 50s that keep bleeding time, later and later. If nerves were the problem, I'd expect the opposite: panic early and then settle once I'm racing. Instead, it gets worse the longer I'm in the race, which is a completely different problem. So you can rule out the "he just needs to relax." I am relaxed. Now, there's a second side to the whole mental argument that I want to address, because it does exist. My coach Craig once said to me that I'm too clever, and that I know almost all there is to know about swimming, which makes me overthink every aspect of race day. He's totally correct. I know world records off by heart, and I study the fastest swimmers and best coaches I can find constantly, which is why this channel exists. Overthinking is real, separate from nerves, and I'm not denying it's part of my story somewhere. But that's not what this video is about. What I'm talking about today is something measurable, sitting in the numbers, not in my head. That's exactly the problem people miss, because most advice about this issue assumes that nervousness is the obvious cause, and for a super calm racer like me who doesn't feel the nerves, it doesn't apply. There has to be something else going on. Here's what I think is really happening, and weirdly it comes straight out of my McEvoy video. Let's look at the structure of my own training set again. 450s going off 70 seconds, meaning I push off every 70 seconds, not that I get 70 seconds of real rest. If I hold a 34 for example, that leaves me 36 seconds before the next rep. As we descend through the set, down to going off 60 seconds, and I'm still holding low to mid 34s, my rest shrinks to around 26 seconds. Now that's still real recovery. 26 to 36 seconds is enough time to partially get rid of some lactate, breathe some air in, and push off a bit fresher again. A real 200 has none of that. Zero rest between 50s. You go straight from one wall into the next, and whatever's built up in your legs and lungs on the second 50 is there on the third, and it's even worse by the fourth. So my training times and my race times aren't actually measuring the same thing. Training is measuring what I can repeatedly produce with 26 to 36 seconds of recovery. But racing is measuring what I can hold with zero recovery and rising fatigue. Those are two different physical qualities, and I've been training one and being judged on the other. This is basically the same idea as McEvoy's rest windows, just backwards. His 2-hour session for just 500 meters works because of the long rest, which lets every rep stay fully maximal. But my set works the opposite way. The rest is short enough that I never truly test what happens when there's no recovery left at all. I've built a fantastic engine for recovering fast. I've never actually built the specific ability to hold pace once recovery isn't an option. There's a second layer to this, and it's the same barrier from the McEvoy video, just applied to me instead of him. I swim IM, breaststroke and mid-distance freestyle competitively across all three. Therefore, my versatility is the big problem. Every week of my training has to build enough of everything. Enough IM specific work, enough pure breaststroke work, and enough freestyle at 200 pace. So in the end, none of it gets the volume of race-specific, zero-rest conditioning that any single event actually needs. But McEvoy trains one event lasting 20 seconds, and everything in his week serves just that one event. I'm training 6 different events across the whole season, and none of them get that. So it's not just about the structure of the rest. It's that I've spread myself across enough events that no single one of them can be trained in the way a specialist would want to. Here's the part where I stop diagnosing and actually commit to something. I'm on holiday right now and I haven't swum in almost 4 weeks, just gym, and another month left before I move to university in late September. New club, new training group, new coach. This is a valuable reset point and I'm not wasting it. So I'm going to make 2 changes. Firstly, the 400 IM is going to come off my program. Maybe not forever, but for this block definitely. I've been trying to get as good as possible at doing 100 meters of all 4 strokes, and I think that's part of why nothing gets specialized enough in my program. I'm going to find out what happens when I stop protecting versatility and actually let breaststroke and the shorter IM events be the focus. Secondly, I'm shrinking that rest interval on purpose. Not down to 0 seconds of rest, because I'm not throwing away everything that works about the set, but going off 50 or maybe 55 seconds instead of 70. Same 4 reps, same breaststroke at 200 pace, but now I'm working with something closer to 15 or 20 seconds of recovery instead of 26 to 36 seconds. It'll make training a lot more difficult to begin with, but still that's a real step towards 0 rest, without abandoning the set structure that's built the engine I already have. And I'm not promising a time. I don't know if this works yet, but I've got about 4 months before my next national meet to test it on the exact race that's shown me this issue for 3 whole years. So that's the theory and that's the plan. 0 anxiety, a real and repeatable gap, and I think I've finally found the actual mechanism instead of the lazy explanation everyone defaults to. I'm going to check back on this. If it works, you'll see it in my times. If it doesn't, I'll tell you that too. Tell me in the comments, do you fade as the race goes on like I do, or do you suffer from the classic fast start and die pattern? I think your answer changes what's actually wrong, and I want to see if my theory holds up against your data too. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!
Breaststroke.